Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Third, and today on Mixing Wednesday, we are talking all about in-the-box mixes and plugins, okay? Mixing with plugins. Many people have been commenting and telling me, Paul, my in-the-box mixes sound flat compared to my hardware mixes, and also using plugins, mixing with plugins sounds flatter compared to the hardware. Now, what I want to discuss today is the reasons why you may be feeling that plugins sound flat, okay? There can be reasons to that you may not know. So, mixing in the box with plugins. Do they actually sound flat, or are you making them sound flat? Let's do it. Right, okay, so let's dive straight into plugins. Now, one of the main reasons that you may find that a plugin sounds flat is going to be to do with aliasing, okay? We've already discussed aliasing, and there's a video that I've made with Waves plugins, the Waves CLA compressors, oversampling them to a 192K from 48K. Obviously, the aliasing reduces massively, and there is an audible difference. Okay, there is an audible difference. Check out that video. And there's also a video that FabFilter have made talking all about aliasing, what it is, how to reduce it via oversampling. It's a great video. Okay, so we know that aliasing has an effect. What if I was to tell you that even without even touching any oversampling, there is a way that you can limit the amount of aliasing, and without even knowing it yourself, you might be adding in more aliasing and making your track sound worse without you even knowing it, and actually it's down to you. Now, one of the most important things is gain staging in analog emulations. Now, a lot of people say, what's the point in gain staging plugins? Again, you can hit them harder. There's more headroom in plugins. Now, just look at the Puig Tech, okay? This is at minus 18 in terms of the aliasing. Look what happens if I zero the input. Look at the amount of aliasing that gets brought into it. You're adding that in. People blame plugins. That's your fault, right? You've not gain staged it properly. Obviously, at that point, you could then say, well, obviously, I can oversample it, okay? So let's have a look at it oversample. 96K, and you're like, right, okay, perfect, okay? Look at that. I've reduced it quite a lot, but there's still quite a lot of aliasing. Now, look what happens at 96K when you gain stage it to minus 18. Voila, look at that. You have a clean plugin, right? So, automatically, okay, that's one thing that you've done, okay, you've made that decision, you've not gain staged correctly, you've added in aliasing. So as you can see, gain staging is very, very, very important to get the best out of the plugins. Aliasing isn't something that you want to add in, it's not something that the plugin manufacturers want you to add in, all right? So knowing that, okay, would you still use that Puig Tech maxing the input on a mixbus? Because this brings me to my next point, that a lot of people go on about mixing in the box, like my mixes sound flat. Probably one of the reasons that your mixes in the box sound flat is probably because you're sticking a plugin that's aliasing over your entire mix bus, or your drum bus, or your music bus, or your general buses. Anything that has lots of tracks being sent to it, you're smearing all of those tracks in this aliasing, okay? You're adding in unrelated harmonics from the fundamental. It's unmusical, okay? You are purposely making a decision, and that then comes into a mental thing, okay? Which then comes into plugin choice. You're in control of the plugins you choose. For example, a good example of this would be the VSM3, the vertical VSM3 from Plugin Alliance, okay? Now, at 44.1, lots of aliasing. At 48K, lots of aliasing. And look at that, 96K, lots of aliasing. And then look what happens again if you don't gain stage on this, where it gets really crazy. 41, okay, look again, look at that. Look at the amount of aliasing that is in there. And that is you abusing the plugin. And what you got to remember is a lot of times on Mixbus, when you've got your tracks sent to your Mixbus, okay, you've normally got them quite loud. So you've got to ensure that you're gain staging, you're taking that input and you're taking it down, compensating. Bring down your input and then bring up your output, okay? That's what they're there for, right? That's what they're there for. And I'm going to throw you a curveball here, all right? Because a lot of people think it's fine, there's aliasing in it, there's stuff like DDMF Meta plugin. I can oversample this plugin at like times 16. I can remove a crap ton of this aliasing and it'll sound better. Not every plugin, and this is why you need to understand your tools, okay? The next part of this is so important. A lot of the reasons why people have flat sounding in the box mixes is because they do not understand the tools that they're using. So just assuming that, oh yeah, I'll oversample it and it'll sound better, isn't always the case, because not every plugin likes to be oversampled. A lot of the times if a plugin isn't supported to a certain sample rate, then it won't multiply the frequencies. Okay, so again, a 2K boost, will be a 4K boost. What you'll find is that kind of natural roll off at 40 turns into 80. That's what happens, okay? A lot of people do this thing with Acustica plugins and they don't understand Acustica plugins and they oversample them and go, this sounds great. I'm like, probably sounds great because you've oversampled it. Everything's shifted, so you're hearing more high end. The high end's been shifted. The low end's a little bit tighter because you've then moved that low end, but you've actually lost more low end. It sounds different to you, and because it sounds different, you think it sounds better. Acustica plugins cannot be oversampled. That's why they have sample frequency packs, right? That's why I do all these tests, so I have a better understanding of the plugins and how to use them. And then at this point, a lot of the analog guys will be like, well, that is why I don't use plugins. Again, right, okay. Now, this is where it comes down to choice. It's not the plugin, it's you. You've decided to use that, right, on your mix bus, right? Let's have a look at the exact same plugin alliance, right? The same like people that like give us these like plugins in the plugin subscription bundle, okay? Brainworks made this. Now let's move to Nailed, okay? A different plugin manufacturer. Nailed Big Al, again, another saturator. Look at this at 48K. Look at the aliasing, it's practically not even there, right? It's there, it's so inaudible, it's so small. Look what happens when you don't gain stage it correctly. Look at that! Look how much aliasing you've brought into that. And I'm already hitting the unit hard. I've got the drive cranked, I've got the level cranked, I'm absolutely cranking it, okay? But just by gain staging, bang, you lose all that aliasing. But again, if you do not gain stage it correctly, again, bang, you still get aliasing at 96K. It's user, okay? It's user error. It's how you use it. So as you can see, 2 saturation plugins, okay? The VSN3, I'm not saying the VSN3 is a crap plugin. I'm just saying it's probably not the best thing to stick on a mix bus. The Nailed Big Al probably is a better saturator in terms of a mix bus because it's cleaner and you're not adding that aliasing over your entire mix. And look, the thing about aliasing is, right, see like on like the odd track or whatever, right, it's not going to have that much of an impact, okay, because it's in the context of a mix. But if it's like lots of instances of it and it's building up and you stick it on a master bus, you stick it on your mix bus, you're going to hear it and it's going to have a massive impact. That's why the Better Maker is such a popular choice these days on master bus, on mix bus, because guess what? It's got no harmonics in it and it's aliasing free. So you're getting the Pultec curves without any aliasing whatsoever. It's clean. You can hear it in the Realtek versus the Better Maker video that I did, okay? And by the way, the Realtek, it's got internal oversampling in it. There's basically no aliasing in that either. If there is any aliasing, it is way below the audible threshold. Still very clean, but lots of intermodulation distortion. And you can hear the difference between a clean EQ over an entire mix compared to a very coloured EQ with distortion in it. Again, they have different sounds. I actually use the Realtek to kind of glue things together, and I actually like that kind of distorted, kind of smeary thing that it does in it. Just kind of gives you this, especially on backing vocals and stuff, it just kind of gives a lot of added weight to stuff. And still, you may be sitting there thinking, my in-the-box mixes still sound flat. I'm gain staging them correctly. I'm selective about my plugins. I reduce aliasing as much as possible with oversampling. My mixes still sound flatter than what I was able to get out the box with hardware. Now, this comes to the last bit, okay? And this is the reason why I've been doing this brand new session and building it the way I've been building it. What you've got to remember is, in terms of DAWs and digital, okay? We're away from plugins now, okay? You're thinking about digital, okay? Digital is clean and it's clinical. What you give it is what it outputs. What you get out of analog is going to sound very different to what you put into analog, okay? And that's the reason why a lot of people like analog, but that's not in digital's nature. Digital was made so you didn't get that. Where analog is the bipolar opposite, okay? In the consoles, you have harmonics, you have crossfeed, you've got circuitry, okay? You've got circuitry going into circuitry, consoles going into units with transformers, then going into units that's got tubes in it, solid state stuff. Again, all of the circuitry building up, all of these harmonics, everything building up. And that's what annoys me about all of this. It's that people generally expect a DAW to do that, right? There's so much going on, right? To create that and that, you've got to use plugins that can try and recreate it, which means that you've got to try and like separate everything. So let's just like tackle flatness, okay? To me, in my head, a flat mix isn't something that's very clear, okay? Flatness, it's kind of, I think about aliasing, it's not very clear. So we're wanting to add clarity. And that's why at the start of this new session that we're doing, we did subtractive EQ and we did noise reduction, okay? To add clarity, right? So first off, we're using plugins to add clarity. Once you've got the clarity, okay, then you can start enhancing it, okay? So from there, right, we started off with clarity. Then I wanted a bit of vibe, okay? The vibe that analog can give you, okay? So again, that color, that harmonics that we don't have. You got to remember, there's no harmonics just now. So we need to add in harmonics. So that's where acoustic blonde pre-mixer comes in. All of the pre's, okay? All of the like 2-band EQs. Again, shaping stuff to add more vibe and a little bit more 3D character. Okay, so from there we've got the vibe. Okay, so we've got clarity. Then we've got a bit of vibe. Then from there, okay, we think about master bus processors. And that's the reason why I added in the Acoustica Snow, a master bus processor. Okay, but again, super, super clean because it's going on the master bus. Then from there, we went to a mixbus processor to glue it all together. Again, more harmonics. Okay, again, the vari level from Tim P, which is the star level. Again, it's very rich. Okay, it's very rich. So again, we're adding in more harmonics and we're gluing the entire record together. Okay, those pockets that I was talking about, that then comes into depth. To me, a flat mix doesn't have depth. So we're adding in depth, and that's what I like about Tim P's comps, especially the vari level, is I felt that it had a little bit of depth and a little bit of width. Okay, again, it's sounding less flat because you're giving it a little bit more width and a little bit more pockets, a little bit more depth. And then from there, we went into tape because I was like, right, okay, does it still sound a little bit flat? Okay, maybe it can sound a little bit flat because I don't have the feel. Okay, a lot of people say that analog has feel. So I was like, right, let's put everything through tape machines. I had a real Studer tape machine, put all the tracks through the Studer tape machine, compared it to the plugins, and guess what? In the poll, a high majority preferred the UAD Studer for the feel. They felt that the record had a little bit more impact and a little bit more feel. Again, it's not flat because it's giving you a little bit more feel. It's doing this. Remember what we said in that video? It's doing that. And then the last thing in terms of flatness is thinking about openness. I've got depth, but do I have openness? Okay. Again, creating more of those pockets, more space, okay? So then we think about console plugins, which is why I added in the Sonymous Britzen, okay, where it's got crossfeed in there. So we're adding in crossfeed, crosstalk, and then it adds that openness. So again, it's not sounding as flat, it's more open. And then after that, you've not seen it yet because this video is coming out after this, is the London Acoustics Enna and Telga, which are basically high and mid-band enhancers, kind of very similar to like Aphex Oral Exciters, but they've kind of combined them all together. And I've used them to create more excitement, taking the dullness off the tracks. Again, a lot of people can say that records sound flat because they're pretty dull, they're not as exciting, they're not, again, coming out at you a little bit more. So I've taken the dullness from the tracks and added in the enhancers from Enna and Telga, and it's a really, really great video. It sounds amazing. And I've also even done a rear bus technique with the Telga with an 1176, which is something that Andrew Sheps does, again, to add more depth and again, add a little bit more 3D character to the mix, adding a little bit more weight. And at the end of the video, which is very, very soon, I promise, I know I've ranted, I'm going to let you hear the rough versus what we've actually got up to this point. And that is no compression and no additive EQ, no reverb, no delays. I've not even got the Pultex on the bloody mixbus yet. No Pultex on the mixbus, which is what I love to do. No saturation. Again, the things that people say I must use to create the big record, the big analog sound, right? As I said earlier, digital is only as good as what you feed into it. And the most important thing that I want you in the box mixers to take away from this is how I thought about the sound, okay? I didn't think
analog.
I broke it down. I broke the sound down and pieced it all together, and I layered it on top of everything, okay? Just like how the analog domain does it, like how all these analog guys say that analog just has this magic, because everything is built on top of each other. It's a chain of events. Okay, remember what I said about consoles and crosstalk, going into hardware gear, going into tubes, going into more harmonics, different linear frequency responses, circuitry going into circuitry, tubes going into transistors. Again, all of these sounds building up together, okay? It's an accumulation. So if you're an analog guy moving into the box, then break it down. What does it sound like to you, right? And break it down into small chunks and build those small chunks with plugins that can give you those desired results. But what I'm going to let you do to finish this video up, I'm going to let you hear the rough mix without any processing, okay? The way like the tracks were, okay? Right from the off. Probably recorded and tracked through probably hardware, gear, and preamps and stuff like that, okay? Might even been recorded through a console. You never know. But either way, it sounded flat. When I put all the mix up together in the rough, as you'll hear, it sounds flat. And what I've done is I've used plugins to add all of those elements that I want. As I said, I want my mix to have depth, I want it to have width, I want it to have openness, I want it to have a 3D nature, I want it to come out at you, I want it to have excitement, right? I want it to have weight, okay? I want you to feel the track, I want you to move along to the track. That's the way that you think, and use and find the right tools that's going to give you that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do not create a flat sounding mix in the box. It's all very subjective, and it's just my opinion. But have a listen to the rough versus what I've done already. And remember, no compression in, no saturation, no additive EQ, no reverb, no delays. Remember, it's all just simple pre-mixing stuff, right? Just before I let you hear it, just remember, subtractive EQ, noise reduction, a little bit of acoustical blonde pre-mixer, going into tape on all of the tracks. All the tracks have been fed into the standard tape machine, each individual track. And then we've got the console plugin from Sonomus. And then we've got the NN Telga, okay, on top of all of that as well. This is the rough. This is what I've got just now. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, and also if you've got any tips or tricks that you do or any plugins that you use to try and get away from that flatness that many people talk about mixed in the box and mixing with plugins. It's been a long one, guys. Thank you very much for sticking around. If you like this video, consider subscribing or becoming a Mixing Wednesday member, and I'll see you next time on Mixing Wednesdays.